When it comes to habits, are you a small changes, baby steps person, or are you a massive action person? Today, we're going to be giving you our take on James Clear's best-selling book, Atomic Habits. We're actually going to take one idea, give three examples. Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. I'm Emily Orton.
And I am Erik Orton.
And here we like to talk about personal growth mostly, but also family relationships and parenting adult kids. We just want to help you grow as a person, a partner, and a parent. So let's get into it. Erik has been reading Atomic Habits. I've been reading Atomic Habits. And one thing we know for sure is that as humans, we are creatures of habit. If you can just do a quick audit of yourself and say, like, oh, here are some things I do that I don't like and I think I need to change. All of those things are probably habits. And if you can form bad habits, I believe you can form good habits. The question is, how do we go about it? And we have some ideas, and James Clear has some ideas. So we're going to let him take the lead.
I love this book, and I've heard about it for a long time, and I just picked it up. My mom gave it to me for a birthday gift. Is that right? Christmas gift. Anyway, and my year... the word for my year is atomic. Wait, did you know that?
And did you choose that word before you got the book?
Kind of at the same time.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, because I love that it's about things that are just infinitesimally small. Like we can just make microscopic progress, but also that huge explosive things can happen in our lives. And so my word for the year is atomic. So I read this already, and I'm an underliner. I'm going to share some of my favorite bits. If you've got a copy, I'm on page 32. And he says, behind every system of action is a system of beliefs. Behavior that is incongruent with the self will not last. You may want more money, but if your identity is someone who consumes rather than creates, then you'll continue to be pulled towards spending rather than earning. You may want better health, but if you continue to prioritize comfort over accomplishment, you'll be drawn to relaxing rather than training. It's hard to change your habits if you never change the underlying beliefs that led to your past behavior. You have a new goal and a new plan, but you haven't changed who you are. The ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes part of your identity. And he gives an example of this. The person that says, I'm trying to quit smoking. That's one identity. The other person might say, I'm not a smoker. It can be the same person, the same action being taken, but the identity is one that says, I'm a smoker who's trying to quit, and the other says that I'm not a smoker, therefore I don't smoke.
So it might be like, yeah, I used to be a smoker, I was a smoker, but now I'm not a smoker.
Right. Mm-hmm. So true behavior change is identity change. When your behavior and your identity are fully aligned, you are no longer pursuing behavior change. You are simply acting like the type of person you already believe yourself to be. And I've gone through several identity changes, and one that I share often when Emily and I speak is this idea of seeing myself in a new way. When it came to sailing, I felt like sailing was for other people. It was for rich people, for connected people, for people that grew up around sailing, which wasn't true for me. And I had to create an identity shift before I was able to really inhabit this new activity or habit. I guess that's interesting. Habit and inhabit are kind of same. Anyway, so identity change for me was that. And so that's one example. Emily, you've got a couple.
I wonder if you didn't immediately say to yourself, I am a sailor, and so therefore I will now learn how to sail, but you had to open the door to the possibility that you could become a sailor.
Yeah.
And then that allowed you to cross the threshold into the sailing life.
I think it was gradual because it was, first of all, I'm the kind of person who can learn how to sail.
Yes.
And then it was a long time before I felt comfortable saying out loud, I'm a sailor. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we just shut ourselves off to certain opportunities because we say, I'm not, you fill in the blank. So you had a couple of other examples you wanted to share, or you want to talk about more about that?
Oh, I want to talk more about you, my favorite topic.
Cool.
I was just
You can
thinking,
see why I love her.
just thinking that you went from saying sailing is not for people like me to I'm someone who could learn how to sail to I am a sailor to now sort of declaring to all our children that if they have children, you would like for them to call you captain. So I think we've come a long way.
I've made some serious progress.
And I want to give a couple of more examples of this. I guess for me, the classic example is I'm not a water person. I didn't start out feeling that way, but then I got scared of the water as a young child and then just decided I wasn't a water person and I could do plenty of fun, great things on land, and I didn't really need large bodies of water in my life to have a good time. And then I came face to face with that when you brought up the idea of living on a sailboat for a year as a family, and there were a lot of things I loved about it, everything really except the water part.
Details.
And I still avoided it for a couple of years, but finally it came to the point where I thought, let me just try this, and I tried snorkeling, and I loved it. And for me, it was actually very quickly my identity shifted as a curious person and as a person who loves to learn new things. Snorkeling that first time opened up an entire new world for me to discover and explore, and I realized it wasn't as scary as I had imagined it to be. And so I immediately said, oh, this is my new favorite thing. I love it. I am actually a water person. And for me, I've come so far as to, yes, we lived on a sailboat for a year as a family, tons of snorkeling, swimming, and getting scuba certified, and still after all this time I consider myself a beginner surfer because I'm like way better at paddling than any other part of the surfing experience. But some other things that I really love this idea that it's your identity that shifts and that your behavior will follow your beliefs, and it can happen incrementally, like, oh, I'm the kind of person who could change, who could become something additional. For me, I just think about how I was such a worrier, that I worried so much that worry was actually a habit. And as we ask on this podcast, what could go right, and we start asking what could go right, I can shift into somebody who is more adventurous, more willing to take risks, more willing to see the upside, more optimistic. And that has allowed me to feel more calm and have a lot more fun. So that's one of the things that people might not always see as a habit, that you might subconsciously just believe, this is who I am, this is part of my personality. I am someone who worries.
I'm going to call that an emotional habit, because I think
an emotional habit.
There are obvious habits like I brush my teeth every morning, or I go for a walk every day, or I eat 3 meals a day, or I go to church on Sunday. Those can be physical, visual, tactile habits, but then there can be habits of, this is how I verbally respond in these kinds of situations, or this is how I emotionally respond, or this is how I emotionally start my day or finish my day. Those can be habits that might be a little bit harder to recognize, but I think we can have just as much control over them. And so,
yeah, once we recognize them, I know for me, I had the habit of responding with anger to situations that I couldn't control. And I spent a year studying that out and trying to understand more about that and work into a different response system, right? A different belief about myself, a different belief about how much I needed to control. And, it's not that I never get angry, but I'm pretty chill now.
So here's my question.
So that's another kind of habit.
How do we change our beliefs? How do we change? You say behavior follows beliefs. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Liz Wiseman was the first person that said it that way, so succinctly. So Liz Wiseman, we hope to have you on the podcast someday if you're listening. Behavior follows belief. And that just hit me like right between the eyes when I heard it. And I don't have my thoughts gathered on this, so maybe you can help me. But the idea of like, how do we actually change our beliefs? Because the classic example is like somebody changing from one faith to another, like a religious faith. That's one way of changing our beliefs. How do we change our beliefs about ourselves, about each other, about the world?
Yeah,
Any
well, I
thoughts
think
top
that's
of
the
mind?
whole reason that we have this as the title for our podcast, What Could Go Right? Because it's just acknowledging that most of the time, most people are thinking about what could go wrong. They're trying to um, soften the downside, like protect the downside, rather than seeing like how much can I grow, how much fun can I have, how much impact can I have. It's more downside heavy than looking at what all of the upside could possibly be. So the first step, I think, is just being aware of that, just opening up to asking some new questions. And like you said, the idea of sailing came up and you immediately had a predisposition towards it, that it was for certain people. And it doesn't even really matter where those ideas came from, but just to be aware that they are there and then say, are they true? Is that true? Is it true that only people who grew up around sailboats sail? Is it true that only rich people sail? No, none of those things are true. And so it's good to kind of recognize I have this feeling around it, especially fear can be a good flag, or resistance. Why am I resisting? Why do I feel afraid of this? Is it real? Is it true? And so that first step is awareness, and then asking some of these other questions.
So can I jump in here? I would say maybe step one is to write down what you believe. And I think maybe
Even speaking it out loud, but writing it down would be more powerful.
yeah, saying it out loud or writing it down. And I think also trying to get at some of those subconscious things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe ask yourself some questions like, what do I believe about my health? What do I believe about money? What do I believe about the afterlife? Or what do I believe about what I'm capable of?
Yeah, what things I'm allowed to participate in. Like, do I feel like there are things that aren't for me that I wish I could do?
Okay, so that's good. And then
that's atomic, because it's very much at the very smallest level of the unit of thought. And then recognizing if we change that thought, it's like a small hinge that a big door swings on.
Because then I'm thinking, what if the next step is to say, well, I just said it. What if? Mm-hmm. What if I thought something differently here? Where we actually say, what if I thought something differently, Wick? What if I thought about my health in this other way? What if I thought about money in this other way? What if I thought about the afterlife in this other way? Whatever those, or what if I thought about my career prospects or my relationship with my kids or anything? What if I thought about it differently? And just say, this is one of my favorites. Can I share with you one of my favorites?
Yeah, I love to hear your favorites.
What if it could be easy? Because that's from Greg McKeown. And he talks about effortless in his book, Effortless. Sorry, we're kind of like bouncing book clubs all over the place here today. Because he talks about doing things that feel easy, or doing them in a way that feels easy. And so one of the questions that we've kind of latched onto as a family is, why make it hard when you can let it be easy? So many people tell us like, oh, this is hard. This requires hard work. This is going to be an uphill battle. This is going to be a real slog. That's their belief. They're trying to tell me that, and maybe they love me and they're trying to manage my expectations. But what if they said, oh, this is very doable. This is well within your capability. You'll enjoy the process. It can be the same actions, the same steps, the same process, but I can have a whole different experience going through it. So maybe asking, what if?
And I have one example of this. We talked about what could go right. This question, what would be fun? That was another sort of question that came from what could go right. And one of our clients took that back to his team. He was a leader of a big team, and they started their conversation with what could go right and what would be fun. Wouldn't it be cool if we could fill in the blank, and had his team fill in the blank? And he'd been working with them for years, and they said he told us that they said that was the most enjoyable and most fruitful meeting they had really ever had.
He took it into a government setting.
Yeah,
he had a municipal job.
Into a government setting, and it made a huge difference. So, if you're feeling brave, if you're feeling curious, if you're feeling like you want the world to look more optimistic to you, maybe try this out. You don't have to read the whole book all at once. We highly recommend it, but you can just start looking at some of the things that maybe you believe, some of the stories that you are in the habit of telling yourself, and think about what if it were different? What if I could learn something else? What if I could approach this a different way?
Okay, I'm going to wrap us up if it's all right with this final
let's go.
quote here. Progress requires unlearning. Becoming the best version of yourself requires you to continuously edit your beliefs and to upgrade and expand your identity. What if we upgraded our identity as often as we upgrade the operating system on our phone or our computers? So,
what could go right?
What could go right? Hey, it's Erik. Thanks for listening, guys. Stay tuned. Here's a quick conversation with my friend Ken, who went sailing with me in Mexico last month, and he's sharing some of his takeaways. If you're interested in going sailing with us, just go to theawesomefactory.nyc/sailing 2024 to get the lowdown. Hope to see you aboard.
If you were to describe this, well, first of all, you came with your son.
Yes, good bonding experience. Just what I wanted. I think it's adventurous. I think it's unique. And I think it's opportunity to forge relationships with people. It's great. Get a little sun. Or a lot of sun, which is exactly what I need. We are in tight quarters, so you're definitely spending a lot of time with people. And, obviously that has not for everybody, but I think if you come with the right expectation, you're going to be very happy. Enjoy every moment. Except for maybe, watching Erik fix everything is the best.
I'm really good, right?
You're like MacGyver. It's so much fun to watch. I think if you are adventurous and a little bit, willing to adapt, it's the best experience you can have. You get everything on this type of experience, but it's not the experience that is packaged. There's not like regiment schedules. You're going to have to roll with the punches, and that's awesome. So for me, it's of course my perfect type of experience, and for people like me, it's their perfect type of experience, and everybody's just like me, so
aren't we all?